There are a number of ways that were suggested in the ancient world for lighting Hanukkah candles. One of them was that a household needed a light. One of them was that a household needed a light for each person. One of them was that a household needed a light for each night for each person. And of all of those three, we only do one of them. We only do the one that the rabbis called Mahadrin min HaMahadrin, the most scrupulous of the most scrupulous. It's very interesting, and it's just something to tuck under your pillow, perhaps, an evening of a dreamlike evening like this one. What does it mean that of all of the mitzvot, that is the one where we gravitate towards, and that's the one to which we gravitate, and that's the one that is the most scrupulous of all the most scrupulous. Even though you see that in red or blue or green neon on the walls of every kosher butcher that you drive past in your favorite holy city, Mahadrin mina Mahadrin, the most scrupulous of the scrupulous. That's supposed to be a big deal. And it is a big deal. But for Hanukkah, it's where everybody goes. Nobody deviates from that one, really. I mean, most people don't deviate from that one. It's a rather interesting thing. There was another way of imagining lighting Hanukkah candles, which was to start from 8. Are you familiar with that one? That you would start with 8, and then you would go to 7 and 6 and 5, and all the way down to 1. Because the scientific truth of the matter is that even if the candles miraculously burned for 8 days, the truth is that they were consuming some kind of fuel, and maybe the miracle was that they were consuming very little fuel and not all the fuel that was necessary for a complete day. So a way of having your miracle and eating it too, as it were. You know, I want to have my miracle, but I also don't want to deny that there is the science of the world in here. There is actually fuel consumption. But that, which was Shammai's way of looking at things in a very, very, I don't know, proper and scientific way, that's not the one that won the day. That's not the way that won the day. The way that won the day was Hillel, which is to say that the miracle continued every single day, got brighter and brighter and brighter. Science notwithstanding, or explanations notwithstanding, that's not what we're talking about when we talk about Hanukkah. We are talking about putting all of our eggs, as it were, in a particular basket and moving towards brightness. My teacher, David Hartman, said, trying to draw these miracles together, he said, none of this would have happened if people hadn't lit the first light, if the priests hadn't lit the first light. They knew they only had one cruse of oil, one jar of oil. But if they hadn't lit even the first light because they knew they wouldn't have enough to last until the new oil was made, then none of this wonderful stuff would have happened. So it's always a bit of a risk. It's always a bit of a challenge, challenging your capacity to imagine, your capacity to imagine against what seems reasonable to imagine. These things, these matters make me think about the dreaminess of Hanukkah and the fluidness of Hanukkah, and it's informed by a number of other things. Well, these are the darkest days of the year, and so dark, go to sleep early. It's my plan, go to sleep early. I haven't been very well for the last couple of days. I just share that with you because every time I see you, I'm always bright and perky, and I think I'm bright and perky right now too, as a matter of fact. But the truth is that since Saturday afternoon, I've been in bed with bad fluids and or not enough fluids and difficulty with all of the things that low tanks entail. And so today I've finally gotten up, and tomorrow morning, I think, one of the good malachiot, which is to say probably the female angels of the Duke Health Home Infusion Services, will come and give me an IV and restore the fluids that have not yet been restored, because I haven't restored all of them.
And she'll have enough for 8 nights, do you think?
I think
that'll be the miracle.
She'll give me enough for 8 nights, I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
Long may she live.
What?
Long may she live.
Yes. Yes. So, it does make me think. Sometimes it seems like the candles are diminishing. They're diminishing towards what? They're expanding towards what? Some of this is informed by the fact that last night when we lit candles, we lit them upstairs, almost too high to be halachically okay to be lit, but we lit them upstairs in my bedroom so that I could see them, and not that I stayed awake terribly long to see them, but long enough, I think, to fulfill the mitzvah and certainly to make the bracha. But last night was my grandpa's yahrzeit. Which also made a difference to me.
He's talked about him. This is Grandpa Jacob.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
You told stories about him.
My grandpa Jacob, whom I saw, with whom I had a conversation in 1970, and at the end of the conversation, I wished him a good yontif, and I cried, and he said to me,
In a dream.
I know what I'm saying. I cried, and he said, "Don't worry, I'll be with you for 13 years." And I woke up in the morning and I told Sibby most of that dream. I did not tell her the part about the 13 years. We were hoping for another child, and we were hoping for a Jacob. I've always wanted to have a Jacob, not a Jack, not a J, not a JJ. Nothing like that, a Jacob, because my grandpa was Jacob.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted. And I had this conversation with him in which he said very enigmatically, "Don't worry, I'll be with you for 13 years," which was even more enigmatic because he had been dead for 6 years when I had this conversation with him. It was very clearly a dream that I had had in an area, a little meadow that I didn't recognize until several years later. When I did recognize it, I went to pay my respects at his grave, and I saw, much to my startled mind, I saw a familiar terrain that looked like my dream. Anyway, I did not take the opportunity to tell Sibby or anybody else about that part of the dream because it sounded too morbid, It sounded like the short end of a life. So I told people that Grandpa Jacob said, "I'll be with you for a long time to come." And it stayed with me up until the time of Jacob's bar mitzvah. Some of you might have heard the story before. But it stayed with me up until the time of Jacob's bar mitzvah. And now I was getting ready to put my hands on Jacob's head to give him the bracha that I give to all bar mitzvah kids, Birkat Kohanim. And I'm thinking, okay, this is it. I have to figure this out right now. What's going on? Is this child going to waste away right in front of me? Or am I still living in a dream? Do I really believe that that's possible? Or can I change this dream? Or what's going to happen here? And it was at that point that I realized that I no longer owed my allegiance to the Jacob who was my grandpa. That I now owed my allegiance to the Jacob who was the next dreamer, who was my son. And that although I had I had guarded him scrupulously from being called by any other names. If I was around when his friends were around, it was Jacob, 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 and nothing but Jacob, and the same with family. But I didn't owe that to him anymore. He could handle the naming himself. He could be whatever name he wanted to be, and it would be fine with me. And I realized just at that point that the dream image that I had kept with myself for 13 years would not have paid off if I had let it go, if I had buried it. And I remember that in the Talmud, one sage says you should hold on to a dream image for 22 years. How do you know that? Well, because Jacob's son Joseph had dreams about his rulership over his brothers, and they were frustrated. And he was 17 years old when he had the dreams, and he was 30 years old when Pharaoh drew him out of the pit, hearing that he was a great dream interpreter, and he interpreted dreams for Pharaoh. And then there were 7 years of plenty, and then there were a couple of years of famine before the people started to come to buy grain, and that ended up to be 22 years. And when he saw his brothers, the text says, Vayizkor Yosef et chalomotav asher chalam al echav. He remembered the dreams that he had dreamed about his brothers. So it's an interesting idea. Keep the dream image with you. I don't know, the machloket, my own experience says 13 years, but he says, Rabbi Yitzchak says 22 years. And my teacher and guide, James Hillman, says just more than 22 years. Just as soon as you have made the black snake into a sliding scale of measurement, or into a phallic symbol, or into your mother-in-law, or into whatever it is, then you have lost the black snake. It no longer is sleek. It no longer is beautiful. It no longer slithers. You need to have the black snake with you. And don't lose the black snake to an interpretation. So I offer that to you just because of the dreamy quality of Hanukkah, and because of the dream of Jacob the dreamer, and the dreams perhaps of the next Jacob the dreamer. And now I think we're maybe ready to look at the texts. One of them is a halachic text, and one of them is actually a dream text that we're not likely to understand, but I wanted to share it with you anyway, just because perplexity seems like the right thing to engage in. So if you want to, Jenna, you can put this up. Yes, thank you. The commandment of the Hanukkah light is to light it in the doorway closest to the public thoroughfare in order to publicize the miracle, for that is what was done in the days of the Mishnah and the Gemara. But these days in which we are living among the nations, each lights within one's own dwelling, and if one has a window onto the public thoroughfare, he should light them there, and if not, one should light them next to the door on the left side, so that the mezuzah should be on the right, the Hanukkah light on the left, and the one who enters should be surrounded by commandments. That was an easy one for me to want to bring to you, because it features the doorway and how it is that we would like to be surrounded as we enter the doorway. Can't happen every night. We don't have a symbol every night for the left side of the doorway, but we do have one for the right side of the doorway. And when we have another one for the left side of the doorway, we're anxious to make use of it. What do you think? Any thoughts about that?
No, you were muted now. Yeah.
I had a thought about this myself. I'm go- I also had a sneeze. I forget which year it was that the SAYS, the SAYS education program was graduating children from middle school and then into high school. And I want to talk just a little bit about the graduation of most of the kids who managed to climb that ladder. It was a very difficult experience. A young woman who was going to graduate wasn't sure if she wanted to graduate.
They had a symbol, they had like a doorway in which the kids at the graduation had to pass through symbolically at a ceremony. And this girl got stuck and didn't know if she wanted to go through that threshold, through that door.
And she was crying. And people came up and said, is there something we can do to help you get through? You're an able person. You've worked hard with your studies and with your family. And she said, yes, I know, but you never know what's going to happen. Well, true enough, you never know what's going to happen, but there are lots of good people in this audience, and they all care about you. They care that you want to graduate, and they want to help you along, and they want you to do well. Very slowly, she warmed up to the idea. Finally, the former head of the program, who was then the head of the program down in the South, got up and said, look, I know you, and I know what you're made of, and I know what you're willing to do to help other people. I've seen you do that. And I know that you'll reach out to other people so that you make a good life for yourself. Well, this time she was still crying, but it was a different kind of crying. It was a crying that said, well, maybe I can make it. Maybe I can reach those higher rungs.
And she went through them.
And she went through them. And there wasn't a dry eye in the group. And everybody grew very close to her. And you knew that she would be close to them. So I know it's from a different culture, but it's the same culture in that we all want to do the very best that we can. And we all want to find the best people that will speak well for us.
Yes.
So that's my Dvar Torah tonight.
Mishkach.
It's very beautiful, and it is the same culture. This is part of the reason that I wanted so much to investigate doors, thresholds, doorways, because it is fundamental to religious consciousness. It's fundamental vocabulary for us. Jews in particular ways, but not only Jews and not only religious, but it's where the meta meets the fore. It's where the meta is hinged to the fore. It's just um, it is itself, and it is also more than that. And I'm imagining that this woman just simply was paralyzed by the door frame and would not go through the door frame, perhaps erected in the middle of a stage with no walls or nothing on either side of it, just a doorway, and not willing, not able to go through it until she felt supported on the right and on the left.
Yes.
Maybe it was not a Hanukiah and a mezuzah
But it was the same idea.
that supported her, but summon those things on right and left that would support you.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what happened was that there were people that got hold of her right arm and her left arm and said, "You're coming with us, sister."
Like the Hanukiah and the mezuzah.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Wow. Are there photographs of her going through the doorway? Not that you know of.
If there are, I'll plan to look for them, right?
We can do it.
So that we can
We probably have.
so that we can find it.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And if we do, my goodness, we just love to send it down to you.
Wow. That's touching. That is just moving and touching. Thank you. What a treasure of a story. Are there any other treasured stories that are hiding out there? Beyond what I can see, I only see 4 people right at the moment.
I don't have a story, but this reading encouraged me to put my candles up at the window. And of course, I needed to figure out which was right and left from where my mezuzah is. I mean, I know where it is, but it just took me a moment to figure that out. And the idea of the entryway, the doorway being on the 2 sides of the commandments. And then it got me to questioning, because after reading, and I'm leaving at 8, I'm sorry to say, but I have to leave. After reading the second story and thinking in terms of, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump there. Reading the second story and thinking that had to do with in being faithful to honor the unknown without fear, seemed to be what that story kind of brought to me. And so thinking of these 2 pillars and in the Kabbalah, the 2 pillars, and I'm sure that there are many others, right and left have 2 different meanings, and something about the lights in the window being the present, the past, the present, but representing kind of the past or the known. Past would already have been known, you've gone through it. And the left side being, more the unknown, but the future.
Mm-hmm.
And to kind of in the doorway be between the 2, and to keep, I'm going to say, what came to mind is keep the faith
Mm-hmm.
with holding those two pillars as the supports.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. They keep their distance and they keep their closeness. You can rely on them. They're not going to collapse on you, and they're not going to expand on you. Well, let's move on. You can see I hope you can see the artful way in which the titles are figured. The light of the door, in light of the door, with the Hanukiah on the left and the mezuzah on the right, and the text in the middle, which just seems to be too cute to be true. And then the next one, which carries the theme a little bit farther into a way that we use the word threshold a lot. Thresholds of pain, of sentience, of consciousness, of emotion. Threshold is a very important word for us. Sure, Sibi can read this.
Take this copy then. I can't see that one. In the year 5569, which corresponded to 1808, the first night of Hanukkah, after the candle had been lighted, a guest came into someone's house. He asked the householder, "How do you make your living?" The latter replied that he had no fixed source of income and that he was supported by public funds. The guest then inquired what the householder was studying, and they began to discuss it. Their conversation became intense and personal, and the householder revealed his longing to achieve some true rung of holiness. The guest agreed to teach him, and then the householder was astonished, fearing that perhaps this was no human being at all. But as he saw that they seemed to be having an ordinary human conversation, his trust was restored, and he began calling the other my teacher. First, he said, I want to learn what I should do to treat you with proper respect. Not, of course, that I would really insult you. It's just so hard for a person to take proper care of such things. Teach me then how to treat you correctly. I have no time for that now, was the answer. Another time I will come and teach you that. Can you lift the page, Jenna? Another time I will come and teach you that. Now I have to leave you. The other insisted, this too is something I should learn about. How far am I expected to accompany you on your way? Just past the doorway, was the reply. But how shall I go outside with him, thought the householder. Now too we are together, but there are other people around. But once I am outside alone with him, who knows who he is? So he turned to the guest and said, I'm frightened to go out with you. To which came the reply, if I can teach you all these things, who could stop me if I wanted to do something to you right here and now? So he went with him out the door, but as soon as they were out, the other grabbed him and began to fly with him. He felt cold, but the one with whom he flew gave him a garment. Take this, he said, and all will be well. You will have food and drink and dwell in your home. And they flew on. Meanwhile, the householder looked around and found that he was back in his house. He wondered greatly about all this, not understanding how he was here in 1 minute, but there in the next. He wanted to tell someone about it. But how do you tell people about something as unbelievable as this? Looking out the window, he saw the guest walk by. Come in, he said, but the other replied, I have no time, for I am going to see you. Even this is a shock. I'm right here, and you say you're going to see me? In the moment you agreed to go with me, to accompany me to the doorway, I took your soul from you and gave it a garment from the lower rung of paradise. Only the lower parts of your spirit remained with you. That is why you can be there when you turn your thoughts there. You are able to draw illumination into yourself. But when you return here, you are here. I do not know what world he was from, though surely it was from the good. The matter has not yet been ended or concluded.
And it is from
It is from Nachman of Bratslav, translated by Art Green,
And it is from
and it is from,
the Dream Talks
okay, sorry.
of Nachman of Bratslav. That's the whole point. That this is a dream. Yeah. Nachman got up and told the dream. So how much sense is it supposed to make? Well, what does it say to you? What do you want to say about it?
I'm going to take a crack at it. I don't know if I'm interrupting somebody else. Is anybody else trying to speak first?
Nope.
Go, Melanie.
Okay. Well, first of all, I love Rob Nachman of Bratslav, and when Jewish Lights Publications was in its glory, they published lots of little books that he, with his writing, with his small aphorisms that I keep next to the bed when I come home from work and I get really crapped out and I just feel like I need a hit of something. And so I'll flip through the book and I'll find something, and even though I've read them over and over, there's always something that sort of hits me. My sense is that God comes to talk to this man who doesn't think he's worth much. He's supported by public funds, and he has this desire to be valued differently. And some very quickly, I think in the beginning, I can't scroll down up and down, so I can't tell you the line where it came that hit me this way, but it seems like very quickly in the story, he gets it that this person is whoever's coming to talk to him is no regular Joe. This is something else is going on, because he says, he gets into this talk with this person who agrees to teach him, and very quickly he sort of gets that this is a very special person, and he wants to be taught, and he says, no, another time I'll come and I'll teach you that. Now I have to leave you. And so then they go through the door, and whatever that threshold is, he's flying with this person, and he comes in and out. And this person, I look at this as I think, okay, so God is sort of taking us for a trip. And this poor guy who was supported by public or whatever, comes through, and he wants to go through, but he's like doubting, should I do this? How do I know something bad's not going to happen? All of this other thing. And essentially the guest or whoever it is says, you got to believe we're doing this. And so at the end, when it comes back to the sort of end of the story, he's going back through the door, but then he sees the guest outside, and he sort of says, well, what's going on? And he goes, well, you're here, but then you can be here, which is, if you want to take yourself through the doorway to believe, or to take yourself to a higher plane, you can, but then you'll go back, but you still can just pass that doorway. That doorway is maybe what we prevent ourselves from going through to reach a higher level of consciousness, or maybe it's that we're afraid to do that because we're afraid that we don't know what will happen, but that the guest, whoever it is, the angel, God, whoever it is, can you scroll down to the bottom, Jenna? So I can, he said, I took the lower parts of your spirit, I took paradise, I gave you a little bit of paradise, and only the lower parts of your spirit, sort of your old self, are there. But that's why you can be there when you want to be. Like, I'm giving you this part of your existential life so you can get there when you want to, and you can bring the light to yourself. But when you come home, you're here. And so this guy's life has clearly been changed because he saw, I don't know, Gan Eden, whatever, wherever he was someplace else, and then he came back. But it was safe for him because whoever the guest is gave him warmth, gave him a garment, gave him, you'll have food and drink. He says, don't worry, and they went, but then all of a sudden he was back home. So I think that this is the sense that God is on the other side, and you have to just walk through the door. You have you may not have all the ability to take all of it in because you only have the lower rung of paradise. You have to go up the ladder yourself. I've given you the first step, and lower than that is, who you are. But if you want to go up the ladder, you're able to go.
Well, that's lovely. And it reminds me a little bit of Norman's story. What does it mean to have a doorway or a threshold consciousness?
Right.
This very seriously, to not walk out of the door in a superficial way, or not walk into the doorway in a superficial.
Well, I sort of feel like it's like, some of that book that was from Nachman of Broslav's, little aphorisms or writing, which is, the empty chair, right?
Mhm.
You, like we put up there's a chair, there's always a seat for you at the table. And that all of his little things that you read are very uplifting, but it takes a certain level of letting go to get, to feel it, it's sort of, and I always felt in his writings, it's sort of like you had to take a chance and let go of your earthly issues in order to believe. But once you could, get there, you could sit in a chair, you were okay. You just had to figure out how to get through the door. And I think that all of his writings, at least to me, I didn't do the translation, I've just read the English versions of it. He was constantly trying to tell people that the understanding, the fulfillment, that God was there, but boy, it was your job to go get him.
See if anybody else wants to respond. Is the doorway a safe place? Is it a dangerous place?
It's a safe place in an earthquake. I think it's one of the places where people are advised to actually, because there's something about the structure of the home that when things collapse, that whatever's holding the doorway in place will stay there, unless I have that backwards.
No, you don't have it backwards. No. I think I'm pretty sure that's right. At least it was up until a building code or so ago. I think it's still right. It was certainly right in the ancient world. Just go around to the ruins that you see in the land of Israel or any other place, and you see walls flattened, but thresholds oftentimes standing. It's very interesting. Is the doorway a safe place? Yes. All right. So yes, there are some things about the architectural structure of the door that make it a safe place. Is it also a dangerous place? Remember, he's afraid. How far do you have to?
You don't always know what's on the other side of the doorway.
Right.
The lady or the tiger.
Right.
And it's a place where unwanted visitors can gain access.
Yes.
Which is why we learned last week, right? We learned from Jenna that doors always open inward or they shut from the inside, because you don't want to open toward the outside to let something in that you don't want to. So that maybe that's your safe zone, is to open that doorway from the inside, kind of peer out to see what's there.
Crack it open.
Crack it open to see whether you want to go out there, whether you want to.
But
If
doorways work both ways.
Yes.
Doorways go both ways.
Well,
Yes.
yes,
But
yeah.
many times as you open it inward, you also open it outward.
Yeah.
Not,
Susan?
Well, yes, and from the other side, the waiting for the door to open if you're on the outside and trying to gain access. And
Yeah.
I had a lot of thoughts of that during my work with the census when we had to deal with safety regulations. Would I have a place to stand back far enough yet still be able to communicate? Would the door leave when it opened leave me enough space to do so?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is part of what it means to pour all of these images of religious imagination and its vocabulary into something that is somehow deeper than that, that pervades the imagination and the vocabulary that comes to us from some ancient archetypal place that is beyond anybody's specific language. Then it gets taken up. You paint the doors of your church red. You put a mezuzah on your door. By the way, you don't have to put a mezuzah on the door of a synagogue. You just have to put a mezuzah on the door of a house. But how many synagogues do you know that don't have a mezuzah on the door? Before long, I'll send you a picture of some garage bays in the Golan, 5 or 6 garage bays, and prominent on the doorways of the garage bays where they pick up the doors, these trisim, to let the cars in, you'll see mezuzot. They're even there. They're everywhere because who wants to take their car to a place, to a mechanic who doesn't have a mezuzah helping to guide his, or strengthen his work? So, yeah, we have taken this and made it way, way more than the halacha expects us to make it of. But rightly so, it protects us. And we have these two terms with which we wrestle all the time, hostis and hospice. They are the two terms that hinge the door. The front door, an architect named Witold Rybczynski tells us the front door is a particular problem for architects because it has to say, come in and be welcome. And it also has to say, stay out. Stay out. This is formidable and you don't want to mess. It's got to say both of those things at the same time. Well, how can it say both of those things at the same time? This is the problem of the architect, who maybe speaks a religious language or maybe doesn't, but has to speak a language of architecture. And I'd love to know, Stacy, what Michael has to say about that. I think that's the only architect in the group. But I think it would be interesting to hear whether it was, some kind of a problem or an exercise, or it even made the cover of one page of curriculum or not, for him. Maybe you can ask him and then report back and find out. But the doorway, how far do you have to go with me in order to show that you are committed to me? You just have to go outside of the house. You just have to go through the doorway. It's no accident that Nachman's dream says you have to go through the doorway. And it's no accident that by the time he gets to the other side of the doorway, everything is transposed. And he's taken up. And then he's protected. He's frightened, and then he's protected. And then, as Melanie was saying, he's taken up and he's brought back and he's put in his house. And now time seems to warp in a very interesting way, so that he's just left this person, or just been left by this person, who's now walking by in front of the house. He says to him, as Melanie narrated, I've given you another level of understanding and of insight, and you can go back and forth. You can trade it back and forth. He says something about how it is that we should be feeling when we go in and out of our house.
We're using the word threshold, but it also makes me think of the word portal. And to have the mezuzah and the Hanukiah each on one side, it's a magical place, that portal, because that's the only place you have both of those on each side of you. When you walk out or in and out, you no longer have both of those on each side of you. It's in that portal. And in that portal, it can take you anywhere because it's power.
What power?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What power? I'm sorry, is that the question? Or
No, I just didn't hear the word power.
oh, power. Yeah, power.
I guess you don't really know
Another-
what power.
Another powerful symbol in the story, I think, is the garment, which in the same way the door swings both ways, a garment can conceal and also reveal, as in the Jacob-Joseph saga. So a garment has some similarity to a doorway.
Yeah. Inside and outside, you're changed if you put it on and if you take it off. And
Rabbi, if I may, it's very hard to think of putting something by a door and not think of Passover and the marking. And so with that one, we were supposed to stay inside to be protected. And I'm not clear what the meaning of the Hanukiah means. And you can think of it because it's on the other side. It's actually when you leave the house, you could be entering the world because it's on that side, the same way a mezuzah has to be on the right side, but when you're entering someplace. So it seems to me there's some symbolism there. Of course, I don't understand what it is, but but there seems to be something about it. And I don't know what the juxtaposition of the two holidays are in terms of being safe in the house, but then being able to go out. And it's okay.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a kind of wondrous ambiguity there. All of this set up by teachers who could have put that mezuzah any place. They could have said, we want it any place that's safe. If there are marauders who are out there. Are there places that that we could put this where you would be safe in your displaying of it, and it would be safe from any kind of attack? But no, they know just what they want to do. They know what they want to do. They want it on the left side. And in fact, there's this lovely little piece, which was a little too convoluted for me to bring. I just didn't feel like working that hard on it, the truth is. In Song of Songs, in the Midrash on the Song of Songs, which talks about how one lover encircles the other lover with a right hand and a left hand, and the right and the left are made out to be the the two sides of the door, and the mezuzah, and the Hanukiah, and Hal during this place, and Harlan during this place, and others who've mentioned the power of this place, and the timelessness of this place, of being in the doorway. It's a place of intense love and of unification, and in and out mean both the same thing. For those of you who were with us back in the very, very beginning of this, Again, not a discouragement, because each of these is freestanding, but still in all, there is some cumulative effect, as I say from time to time. And the first time that we read together, we read what Maimonides had to say about encountering the oneness of the universe here, and that there is something very deeply about love that is associated with this mezuzah and with all of its feelings. So, yeah, are you in or are you out?
Makes me think of when Harlan mentioned holidays. I think the sukkah has the same kind of image where you walk into the sukkah and then the in and out. There's no mezuzah on the sukkah, but there is usually some kind of doorway or entranceway to the sukkah. There's an in and an out of the sukkah. Are you in or are you out? And the whole time you're out because you're outside, but you're in a different place. So I think that in-out idea, I think we could almost do that with every holiday in some ways, going in and out of transition times, and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur as well. There's no real door, but I think we could fathom that idea.
Yeah. We still have some other poems coming up for us. Rivka Miriam poem about being set by the doorway, being instructed. Another Amichai poem, another couple of midrash texts, some other things that are going to illustrate and illuminate and embroider these particular themes. We'll see also when it comes to teshuvah, how it is that we approach teshuvah. You want to talk about something that's necessary and also terrifying? Wait. Think about teshuvah. Think about what it means to ask forgiveness from somebody. Think about what it takes to go up and knock when Rabbi Yirmiyahu wants to go up and knock on Rabbi Abahu's door, and he can't bring himself to do it. All he can do is bring himself to come and sit on the front stoop. And then something happens to change everything. Well, that's enough of a commercial message for right now. But all he can do is bring himself to come up and sit on the front stoop. He came with every intention, we suppose, of knocking on the door and clearing things up with his colleague, but it just couldn't happen. And then there are two more stories about later sages that are somewhat more complicated stories. One that is rather complicated and rather, grotesque, I would say. But sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof, let's say. So when it comes to teshuvah, we'll find the same kind of thing. And what it means also in the liturgy of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, to be knocking on the door, even as the door is closing. We haven't gotten to that either, but these are all very big and important parts of what it means for us to be living with the doorway consciousness. One of the things that I love about this particular text, I say just as we're ready to sign off, is that Nachman in the text, casting it as a dream, telling it as a dream. I sure hope it was a dream, but even if it wasn't, it was cast as a dream, and that's artful enough. I do not know what world he was from, though surely it was from the good. The matter has not yet been ended or concluded. Well, I haven't figured this all out yet. It's ours to figure out. How about it? How about if we work on it? How about if we work on it together? There's no sense that we will have, that will be right or that will be wrong, but something about it will be truth and truthful. And the door itself is going to be a portal. Well, I hope this has been enough to connect us with, there's more about dreams and doors also. This is just an opening into dreams and doors. But because it was Hanukkah and because of the door opened by my grandpa Jacob all those years ago, from one Jacob the Dreamer to another Jacob the Dreamer, I wanted to share all of this with you. And because this was a dream that came during the first night after lighting the first candle. I can imagine that Nachman goes to sleep and that he sees in his mind's eye the first candle that's still burning low. And through that candle sort of opens up, heart-like or tear-like, and through it, he enters into this other world. So we'll find out more about that and more about him another time. But for now, I think we will we'll just sign off and say good night. And Hanukkah.
Yashikah.
Yoshikaya.
Yeah, Shaka.
Chag Sameach, everyone.
Chag Sameach.
Yeah, enjoy